Hello and welcome to Nithrania YouTube channel. You're watching another episode from the Game in a Nutshell series designed for explaining the board game rules. My name is Branislav Berec, and in this video we're going to learn how to play the game called Titan, the game that comes with this gigantic box published by Holy Grail Games, and let's get started. Before your first game, you will have to assemble the game board and some of the game components, so follow the instructions in the rulebook. Then if you play a 2-player game or a 3-player game, you have to close off certain areas of the game board. To do that, you will need these rock tiles that you will place on these spaces. And this is how you close off the board in a 2-player game. You essentially block one entire half of the game board. And this is how it looks in a 3-player game. You are closing off 1/4 of the game board. Take these deposit tokens, find these 4 with the ice symbol and set them aside, and turn all other face down, shuffle them, and in a 2-player game keep 16 of them. In a 3-player game you will use 24 tokens, and in a 4-player game you will use 32. Unused tokens are returned back to the box. Then place 2 deposit tokens face down on each of these mining zones on this upper ring. Then take 1 deposit token with an ice symbol per player, so in a 3-player game just 3 tokens. Flip them face down and shuffle them with the remaining tokens. After that, place 1 deposit token face down on each mining zone on this middle ring. Only then flip all of those tokens face up. Then replace all the ice tokens with ice tiles. All other tokens remain where they are. Take these rigs, create 5 stacks, 1 stack for each color. In each stack, shuffle all the rigs and place them face down, and then flip the top rig face up. Take these modules and place them somewhere near the rigs, and by the way, these trays don't count with the game. Take these planetary order tiles, divide them into 4 stacks based on their value at the bottom of the tile, then shuffle each stack separately, and then stack the tiles on top of one another, with the tiles with number 5 at the bottom and tiles with number 2 on top. Place the entire stack on this space on this objective board, and then flip the top tile face up. Then take this Mars, large planetary order tile, and place it in this slot on the objective board. The Mars tile is recommended for your first game. In later games you can use any of these large planetary tiles. Then take these 2 permanent objective tiles and place them in a designated spaces on the objective board. Finally, separate these objective tiles into the stacks based on their bag, shuffle each stack separately, and then randomly choose 1 tile from each stack and place it on its slot on the objective board. You can return all the unused tiles back to the box. This is the recommended objective setup for your first game. In your subsequent games, you can also include the drone objective with 1 randomly chosen objective tile. Then coming back to the game board, place 6 translucent cubes per player onto this core tile at the center of the game board. So that's going to be 18 in a 3-player game. These cubes represent deuterium. All other resource cubes will form a general supply. Then each player chooses a color and takes all the components of that color. This is a cargo hold board, this is a dropship board, base, drones, score token, control tokens, pipes, and 1 operator card which doesn't have any special purpose in the game unless you take a special operator card, which is an advanced module, which does have some endgame bonuses. However, in the base game you only use the basic operator card with no special abilities. The scoring tokens of all players are placed next to the credit board, which is essentially a victory point board. And you can take those scoring tokens and randomly choose 1 of them, and that player becomes the first player in the game, receiving this first player token, the foreman token, or the first player miniature. After that, you're ready to start the game. In Titan, players are employees of a large corporation that wants to mine resources from Titan, which is the largest moon of Saturn. And to do that, players will build their bases and rigs and the infrastructure to mine those resources. The most successful employee, the most successful player, becomes the winner of the game. The game starts with the so-called landing phase, in which players place their bases on the upper rig, taking the resources from that mining zone. They will also take their first rig and set up the first infrastructure. Once that initial landing phase is completed, the game is played over 5 rounds called cycles, and each cycle has a deployment phase and then 4 turns. In the deployment phase, you will choose one new rig from those phase-up rigs, place it on the game board, score that rig, and then load your dropship with the resources from this mining zone and with pipes from your cargo hold. Then after this deployment phase, each player will have 4 turns, 1 turn per dropship space, and on your turn you will either take the resources from your dropship and place them on your cargo hold, or you will take the pipe and expand your network on Titan. In addition to that, you will be able to activate your drones, and with them you pick up or drop resources. You will be able to upgrade a rig and score it again. And if you meet the criteria, you can also fulfill the objectives. Then at the end of the cycle, at the end of the round, if you would have an infrastructure down to the core of the Titan, you will be able to extract resources from there, and also you can extract resources from the rigs in your network. The game ends after 5 cycles, after 5 rounds, and then simply the player with the most victory points is the winner. You score those victory points from the rigs over the course of the game, and then at the end of the game, you score positive victory points from each deuterium, each translucent cube in your cargo hold, negative victory points for each Tolin's resource, this red cube. Then the player with the most resources in each category will also score some victory points, and also the player with the most fulfill orders. So again, after that, the player with the most victory points is the winner. The game starts with the initial landing phase, starting with the last player in the player order and then counterclockwise to the first player. On your turn, you have to choose one of these mining zones on the upper ring. However, you may not choose a mining zone which is above any of these ice tiles. Then, after choosing the space, place your base in that mining zone, take the resources from these tokens, and place those corresponding resource cubes to your cargo hold, to any of these empty spaces. These resource tokens can be returned back to the box. Then, as indicated by these drone icons, place all of your 4 drones next to your base. Each drone space can only be occupied by 1 drone. Then take 3 pipes from your cargo hold and place 1 pipe to the right of your base, 1 pipe to the left, and 1 going down from your base to the middle ring. Make sure all those pipes have arrows pointing outwards. If you place a pipe on a space which depicts any resource, here it's water, you place that resource directly to your cargo hold. Note that every time you place a pipe on these spaces, you take one of these red cubes, the Tollins, which obviously applies to this pipe as well. And again, that red cube is placed in your cargo hold. Then choose one of the phase-up rigs from the display and place it on the mining zone, which is directly under your base. Again, take the resource cube from that deposit token from that mining zone. So here we have this black cube. Then score the indicated number of victory points immediately and add indicated resource cubes to that rig. Here we have 3 translucent and 2 red cubes, so 3 deuterium and 2 Tolin's resources. Finally, take another ice tile and place it directly below that newly placed rig. By the way, don't flip another rig face up, that only happens at the start of the cycle. When all players are done, the landing phase is over and we can proceed to the first cycle. The game is played over 5 cycles, 5 rounds, and each round has a deployment phase and then players take 4 turns. At the start of this deployment phase, first remove all the phase-up rigs from previous cycle or from the landing phase, and then flip all the top rigs face up. Then starting with the first player and continuing in a clockwise direction, each player takes one rig, places it anywhere on the game board, and it means literally anywhere. It doesn't have to be adjacent to the network of that player. However, you may never place it on spaces with ice tiles. Then immediately score the victory points from that rig and add the cubes of the corresponding type to that rig. Then, if there are any deposit tokens on that mining zone, you will load the corresponding resources to your dropship. So this time they don't go to your cargo hold, they go to your dropship, and again, tokens can be returned back to the box. And then fill the remaining spaces on your dropship with pipes from your cargo hold. When completed, it's the next player's turn. The next player chooses the rig and repeats the same procedure. By the way, you can place the resources and pipes on the dropship in any order you want. Then after the deployment phase, players take turns, starting with the first player and then continuing in a clockwise direction. And on your turn, you have to follow the 4 steps in this exact order. First, you will take one dropship action. Then you may perform one drone action. In the third step, you may upgrade a rig. And then in the fourth step, you may fulfill an order. In addition to that, you may also do some free actions like fulfilling the objectives or performing additional drone action, and I'm going to explain all these steps in the detail right now. So the first step is taking the dropship action. Each slot determines one action, and you can take these actions in any order you want. If you choose a slot with a resource, you simply take that resource and place it in your cargo hold. That's your dropship action. If you choose a slot with a pipe, you may extend your network. To extend your network, place that pipe in any free slot, free network slot on the game board, and place it with the arrows going away from your base. The slot, when you place the pipe, must be connected to your base, and your network is connected even when you go through unoccupied, empty mining zone, or even if you go through ice. You may branch your network into different directions. You may even branch your network like this, and if needed, you may even loop back and place the pipe in the opposite direction. Which means if your pipes are going down to the crater, they may also go up the crater. When you place a pipe on a space with a resource icon, you take the resource cube and you place it directly in your cargo hold. Then after you place the pipe, you immediately activate the rig to which you have just connected your pipe. You activate that rig even if it was built by another player. However, you only activate that rig if the arrows on that pipe point toward that rig. If you would place a pipe with arrows indicating the opposite direction, you would not activate that rig. In addition, that pipe must be connected back to your base. By being connected, it doesn't mean that those arrows have to point back towards your base. You just have to have an uninterrupted line of pipes from your base to that rig. And when you activate the rig, you activate all the rigs of the same color which are in your network. And finally, you may activate the rig even if you have activated that rig before. Anytime you place a pipe pointing towards that rig, you activate that rig. So in this example, I could also place the pipe like this, going upwards and activating it. Now, when you activate the rig and all other rigs of the same color in your network, you take one resource cube of the corresponding color. In this example, I would take 2 orange cubes. These resources are placed in my cargo hold. If you would have your drone docked at that rig, you would activate it one additional time for each such drone. So if I would have 2 drones over here and place a pipe there, this rig would be activated 1, 2, 3 times. However, those drones must be empty, they may not carry any resource. So if in this example I would place another pipe like this, I would activate this rig and this one would be activated 3 times, which means I would gain 4 orange resources. By the way, that orange resource is called silicium in the game. In your cargo hold, each space can hold maximum 1 resource cube, and if you would gain another and the hold is full, you have to discard some of those resources. You may discard the one you have just gained or any other one except for the red tolins. These may never be discarded. In addition, you may never discard pipes. That means anytime you gain a red cube, the tolins cube, and the hold is full, you must discard one other resource to make a space for this tolin cube. These red rigs are special rigs. When you activate it, instead of gaining the red cube, you actually do quite the opposite. You can discard the red cube either from your hold or from any rig which is in your network. Remember, each empty drone docked next to that rig increases the activation of that rig by 1. So in this example, if I would place the pipe here, I would activate this rig twice, which means I can discard 2 red cubes either from my cargo hold or from the rigs in my network or any combination of it. When you extend your network and you connect the base to the core, don't forget to take the red cube. However, for connecting to the core, place one of your control tokens in this space, and that will allow you to extract deuterium from the core at the end of the cycle. Now, core is the connected zone, which means from that zone you can continue building your network even upwards to any other space, any other mining zone anywhere on the game board. However, this time you don't place that control token here. You only do that when you place the pipe going downwards. The second step of your turn is the drone action, which is optional. You may only activate 1 drone per turn, and each drone has a number over here. This one has 1, 3, 2 and 4. I hope it's seen on the camera. So on your first turn in the cycle, you may only activate the drone with number 1, on your second turn the drone with number 2, and so on and so forth. The drone action consists of 2 parts. First, you may move the drone, and then you may take an action with that drone. When you move with your drone, if you move it anywhere within your network, you may do that movement for free. If you move it outside of your network, basically anywhere on the game board, you have to spend 1 black cube to do that. This is hydrocarbon. Similarly, when you move it from outside of your network back into your network, you have to spend 1 black cube. And even when you move it from outside of your network to another space outside of your network, you have to spend that black cube. And just to reiterate, the drone can only land in the designated space next to the rig. Each space can hold maximum 1 drone. So, after moving your drone, you may take an action with that drone. There are 3 types of action. The first one is to load or unload the resources. Drones can only carry deuterium or tolins cubes. So when you load the resource, you put it into that drone. When you unload, you place it from the drone back to that rig. And when you take an action with the drone, which is next to your base, you can load or unload resource cubes from your cargo hold. Then when you drop off the red cube, the tolins, into a full rig, the rig which already contains 5 cubes, you have to make a space for that red tolins. You have to discard the deuterium, and only then you can drop off that tolins into the rig. And if that rig would already contain 5 red cubes, you may not drop off another one. Now, drones can land and perform actions at the core as well. You may drop off the tolins cube into the core, but this time you don't remove any deuterium cube. You may also load cubes from the core, but remember you may only do one action per turn, so you may either drop off or load resources there. The second type of action you can do with the drone is to destroy your pipe connected to that mining zone. You can remove your own pipe, but also the opponent's pipe. It may be strategically needed at the end of the game for the endgame scoring. I'll talk about that later in the video. The pipe removed this way is not returned back to your cargo hold, it's actually completely removed from the game. After the pipe is removed from the slot, another pipe may be placed there and again activate the rig. It can be your own pipe, it can be pipe belonging to another player, and if that slot contains any resource, you may gain that resource again as well. However, removing the pipe is not for free. To do that, you need to spend one yellow cube, which is titanium. And the third type of action is the one we already talked about. It's docking the drone. If you have an empty drone next to a rig, it reduces the cost of upgrading that rig, as we will see in a minute, and it also increases the activation of that rig. The third step of your turn is upgrading a rig. You may only upgrade a rig which is in your network, or if it's not, you must have a docked drone next to that rig. Again, just to reiterate, docked drone is a drone without any resource cubes. To upgrade the rig, you have to pay orange cube or cubes, that's the silicium, and you have to pay as many silicium as there are empty pipe slots connected to that rig. So in this example, it's 1, 2, 3. If I would upgrade this one, it's 1, 2, 3 as well, because these ones are occupied. However, each of your docked drones reduces that cost by 1. So to upgrade this rig, I would need 1, 2, 3 minus 1, 2 cubes of silicium. When you upgrade the rig, choose a module of any color. It doesn't necessarily have to be the module of the same color, and you will place it on that rig. You will score the victory points, original victory points from that rig, here it's 4, plus 2 victory points from the new module. After that, you also place your control token on that module. Now, anytime any player activates this particular rig, you, as the owner of that module, will gain 1 resource of the color of that module. So in this example, you would be actually able to reduce 1 tolling cube, either from your cargo hold or from any rig in your network. In addition to that, at the end of the cycle, if the rig would be connected to your base, you would be able to extract resources from that rig. So now, for example, if I would place a pipe like this and activate this rig, since this one is also in my network, I would gain 1 plus for the drone 2 orange cubes from this rig, then 1 plus additional 1 orange cube from this rig, and in addition I can also activate my module. The final fourth step of your turn is fulfilling an order. You can fulfill maximum 1 order per turn, or you can fulfill the major order. And to fulfill an order, you have to discard the corresponding cubes. In this example, it's 1 water and 1 silicium. Then you score the victory points from that tile immediately and place it next to your player board. It will be needed at the end of the game. Then reveal the new tile face up. If you would fulfill the major order, you would not reveal any new tile because this is the only major tile for the game. You would still take it and keep it next to your player board. However, no other player will be able to fulfill that large order. In addition to these 4 steps of your turn, you can also perform free actions. You can perform in any order you want. And there are 2 free actions. First of them is additional drone activation. To do that, you need to spend 1 titanium, and you can only spend 1 for 1 additional activation. And you can activate your drone another time during the same turn. You can still only activate the drone which corresponds to your current turn. So if it's the second turn, I can only activate the drone with number 2. However, it's 1 additional activation. I cannot activate it more than 1 additional time. But you can do this activation before, during or after your main action. The second free action is fulfilling objectives. If you meet the criteria on any of these objective tiles, you can take your control marker and place it on the first empty space from the left on that objective tile. To fulfill these objectives, you don't have to discard the resources, you have to possess them, you have to have them in your cargo hold. And if you meet the criteria for more than one objective during the same turn, you may fulfill all of those objectives. At the end of the cycle, all the control tokens are activated, and this activation is mandatory. When you activate the control token on a rig, if that rig contains any red cubes, you have to take a red cube from that rig. But you only activate a rig if it's connected to your base. Only if the rig contains just the translucent cubes, the deuterium cubes, you may take one of these cubes. All these resources are placed in your cargo hold. Then, when you activate control tokens at the core, for each control token which is connected to your base, you may take one deuterium from the core. However, if there are any red cubes in the core, the process is slightly different. In a player order, let's say it's B, D, and C, each player takes one red cube from the core, so this one would go to the green player, next one would go to the purple player, and the next would go to the red player. Then there is one more activation for green and one more for purple. The green player would take the red cube again, and only now when there are no red cubes present, the purple player may take one deuterium. After that, the first player token is moved clockwise to the next player. At the end of the last cycle, the fifth cycle, when activating the control tokens, the process for rigs is slightly different. When you activate a rig which is connected to your base, if it contains any red cubes, you don't take one cube, you have to take all of them. That's why it may be beneficial when you have a drone docked at that rig to destroy your pipe so that that rig is not connected to your base any longer, which means you don't have to take any of those stolen cubes. There is no change for activating the control tokens at the core. The game ends at the end of the fifth cycle. In addition to the victory points you gained over the course of the game, you gain 2 victory points for each deuterium cube in your cargo hold. You lose 1 victory point for each red cube, the Tollings cube. And then, for all other 4 remaining categories of resources, the player with the most resources in that category scores additional 3 victory points. The player with the second highest number scores 1 victory point. In case of a tie for the first place, all players gain 3 victory points. There is no score for the second place. If players are tied for the second place, they all score 1 victory point. Then the player with the most fulfill orders also scores 3 victory points. This time, the major order, the large planetary order, counts as 2 orders. So in this example, the green player would have 2, 4, 6, 8 orders fulfilled. And again, the player with the second highest number scores 1 victory point, and the ties are resolved in the same manner. If you would have any operators with the endgame scoring bonuses, add those victory points as well. If you didn't count the victory points from objectives, add those victory points now as well, and then the player with the most victory points is the winner. So that's how you play Titan. If you would have any questions or comments, please put them into the comment sections below. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. If you like the series, please subscribe. You can even support the channel on the Patreon page. My name is Branislav Berec. You've been watching Game in a Nutshell, and hope to see you next time. I would like to thank everyone who has ever supported the channel, and especially the current supporters listed on this page. If you too would like to support the channel in creation of videos like this and other video tutorials and other content on this channel, please visit the patreon.com/Nithrania.